So far we have created our application interface by first creating the content using the HTML language and then specifying its style using CSS. Our final step would be to make the application work basically using JavaScript language. By going back to our project in the script.js file, here we're going to write a script basically that handles the user interactions with the game, and that's basically where we're going to do everything for our game. So let's start by creating a few variables in JavaScript. Let's create the user score and the comp score. If you're not familiar with JavaScript, a variable is basically, think of a cell that holds a single value in it. In our case, we have user score, which is 0, and computer score, which is 0 as well. This can change, that's why it's called variable. We can print it, we can do operation with it and stuff like that. Keep in mind that when we update this score, so if we set it to 1 for example, nothing is going to happen on our web page, because that's just a variable. It has nothing to do with our game right now. We're going to link that later. Let's first go to our HTML web page and connect our JavaScript to the document. For that purpose, we're going to use the script tag. And we're going to specify the source of the JavaScript file, which is .js in our example. So you can either put the script tag at the end of the body tag or at the head tag. The most common one is at the bottom of the body tag. So what's the difference, you may ask yourself? When we put the script at the head tag, it gets loaded in the browser before any other content. So when you put it at the end of the body tag, it gets loaded when the page has already finished loading. That's why we prefer it most of the times in the end of the body tag. We don't want our page to be white for a few seconds, for example, as the script is loading. We want to load our content and then our script. But of course there are cases that we want our script to run first, so just keep that in mind. Okay, let's go back to our JavaScript file and let's try to change the score of the player to 1, for example. If we do that, it doesn't work obviously, so what we need to do is basically take this element right here and change its content. Every tag in our HTML file can be handled in JavaScript. We can change its value, specify its attributes, we can even delete it or create new ones. So let's add an ID on this score right here. This will be the P score for player and the C score for computer score. So using the getElementById function in JavaScript, we can do this. Let's name it we will do document dot getElementById, and our ID for the user is pscore. We'll do the same for the computer score. Now these variables right here store the tag itself and some info about it. This info includes the content of the HTML, the attributes like the ID, and much more. Let's try to change. Let's set the user score to 2, and let's update our user score field. Let's do user score td dot inner HTML equal to user score. As you can see, the player score is now 2. So let's try to understand a little bit better what happened here. What we did was create two variables which has nothing to do with our document. We also create two variables which store the tag that we have in a document, and we found them using their IDs. So using the getElementById function, we got the tags that we wanted to. Then, using the variable for the user score, we updated the inner.html property and set it equal to our user score. We can set it equal to a lot of things like hello. But in our case, it's going to start with 0, and we're going to update it as the player chooses a weapon and basically fights with a computer. So, what else do we need to do? We also need to get this header right here and the description as well. If you remember from the past videos, we also have created a heading tag in which we will store the outcome of our fight with the computer. So let's take, using the same way, these two elements. We first have to create an ID, of course. Let's do desk for this one and result for this one. Sorry, let's do result. Let's test if that worked out right by changing the inner HTML property to hello world, for example. If we go back to our web page and update, we're going to see hello world right here. So this worked out right. So let's remove this and see what else we are going to need for our project. We are going to need our three buttons, of course, the rock, paper and scissors images. So when the user clicks any of them, we want to handle that click and execute some code as soon as we get the click. So let's load this image as well. This is called caching, by the way. So we basically load the web page on our script and we're going to use it as the user plays with our game. Let's do of course we haven't yet specified IDs for our images, so let's do ID and scissors. Now we can get them using the getElementById function. Let's move on by adding the first features on our game. Let's go and add an event listener. I will explain this when I finish, so don't worry about it. So, what this is, we attach an event listener, which is when an event occurs, our function is executed. Our function currently does nothing, but we are going to do a lot of stuff here later. So we take a rock object, which is this one, and we attach an event listener which handles the click event on our image. So when an event happens, click in our case, this function is executed. Let's try that by doing console log. This is a very useful function where you are debugging something in JavaScript. You can print out things in the console. Let's do user clicked rock. If we go back to our web page and refresh, we're going to hit F12 and open up the console. And we're going to hit rock. As you can see, user clicked rock appears here. But when we click paper or scissors, nothing happens. Let's try that one more time. Okay, user clicked rock. So basically our program currently catches the click event and executes the function that we have here. Let's also attach this. Let's also create this for paper and scissors. I'm going to copy and paste it to save time. Now if we go back to our web page, you can see that our program detects every click of any image, which is very good. So, what we want our program to do as soon as the user clicks an image. Let's say that our user clicks paper. What our program should do next? It should generate a random reply from the computer. So when the user clicks paper, we want our computer to also select a weapon, let's say rock for example. In order to do that, we are going to do it completely random. We are not going to create a clever artificial intelligence here. Let's create a function called generate choice. Which will have no input, and it will return either rock, paper or scissors. So I'm going to show you how we are going to do that in a minute. Okay, let's see that. Okay, so math.random returns a random number from 0 to 1. So let's try to print that for you to see. We're going to call this function when the user clicks rock, for example. Okay, so every time we hit a rock, as you can see right here, a random number is generated. It will never be 0 or 1, it will be something in between, and it's completely random. We can't predict what will that be. So you may ask, why do we need that number? Using that number, we're going to basically produce a rock, paper or scissors response. We will see how we will do that in a minute. Let's first, okay, so suppose that rock is 0, paper is 1, and scissors is 2. So in order to generate a number from 0 to 2 basically, let's try multiplying a random number by 3. This will give us, as you can see, a number from 0 to 2.9999. But that's not enough as well. We need to round it up to the closest integer, like 0, 1 or 2. As soon as we have a 0 and 1 or a 2, we can return the user rock, paper or scissors depending on the number. So for that we are going to use the floor function like this. Let's try now to see how it looks. So if we refresh our page right here and click the rock, you can see that we're getting either a 0 and 1 or a 2, which is great. The results are pretty random, even when we get a lot of ones right here. That's what random is basically. So let's now create a switch case, and according to the number that we generated, we're going to return a rock, a paper or a scissors. So switch, and according to the number we're going to do case 0, we're going to return R for rock. It will be easier to check the R than the rock. You are going to see later. We're going to return P for rock, paper. I missed the semicolons here. And in case of 2, we're going to return scissors or S. What we will also do is update the description header by saying that computer picked rock, for example, scissors or paper. We're going to copy this and here as well. Okay, so let's try to run our program now. Okay, we are always going to pick a rock. Wait a minute. We need to remove this one. Okay, and as you can see here, computer keeps picking different things, or in that case picks rocks 4 times in a row, so it's completely random, and we're good to continue. This video is getting a little bit long, so we're going to stop now and continue in the next one.